On my podcast today is Kevin Ford, president of Market Access. Give the listeners a little idea of what you do for a living, Kevin.
Sure. Market Access, we help companies get their products into retail. So I've been doing this, pretty much my entire career since about 1992, maybe even earlier than that. You know,
overnight success.
Yeah, exactly. No, not so much. But on my own since 2001, and presently I am currently the vice president of sales for two companies. A company called Urban Armor Gear, UAG. We make protective cases for phones and laptops and MacBooks and iPads and Surfaces and things of that nature. And then also vice president of sales for a company called Tablo, and we make a set-top box that uses an over-the-air antenna to allow you to cut the cord. It works with your Roku and your Chromecast and things like that.
Nice.
That occupies my time and keeps me on a plane pretty consistently these days.
I've known you for 33 years almost.
Something like that,
33. And you're the one person I see that literally travels more than I do. How much traveling are you doing per year, do you think?
I'm on the road, I would say, pretty consistently, at least 3 weeks out of every month. Some months, have been 4. This year's been particularly intense. I've literally the only week I haven't traveled this entire week will be this week, which is why I'm actually doing the podcast with you, because
exactly.
I'm actually in town this entire week for a change. But normally at least three weeks out of every monk.
Well, let me ask you this question, because I have to deal with it. I don't travel quite that much, but I have months where I'm gone too. How do you balance the work-life balance with the kids, the wife, and all that while you're on the road? Well,
the level of intensity I'm traveling at, presently, really probably kicked in about 3 or 4 years ago. And, the good news was we only had the one kid, and she went off to college. So we were effectively, empty nesters. That made it a lot easier because obviously the kid factor is a big deal.
It's huge.
With the wife, when there's actual work to be done. But, with her not in the home, and out in college and, us being empty nesters, hasn't been that much of a burden. Obviously, the relationship is kind of an issue, but, we've been married 26 years and I've been traveling the majority of that time. So kind of funny, if I'm home for 2 or 3 weeks at a time, things start to get a little dicey. Hey, is it time for you to go? Don't you have a trip to go on? Yeah.
Well, for me, I get the same way, man. It's I've been off for 2 weeks just because of problems with work, and I'm getting squirrely.
Yeah. I don't miss the traveling so much. It's more her, more us getting on each other's nerves. I don't like to travel. I've been doing it for just way too long. I do it because I have to, but
yeah. And
you make the best of it, when you're out there, but it's not something I choose to do.
Well, the name of my podcast is Travel Wins, and kind of for me at least, what I've done is I take a lot of photos when I travel. And
okay.
It keeps my mind off. I do a lot of driving. So, drive up to Salinas, San Francisco, San Jose, Bakersfield, down to Calexico, et cetera, et cetera. And for me, I try to find a win out of, I have days where I'm just driving. I'm sure you have days where you're just flying.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm definitely more in the air than on the ground,
But, for me, I always try and find a travel win. For me, it means maybe it's taking a good photo. Maybe it's everything going smoothly, This way I can find little wins out of, not every meeting I have is a success. You know what I mean?
Oh, I hear you. One of the things I like to do is, I don't know, I'm a fan of IPAs and breweries and things like that. So, the microbrew fad has created this kind of cool opportunity, when I'm out on the road, I can actually, swing by, a local brewery in, Kansas or, Atlanta or someplace like that. And I do honestly, I do consider those little wins because that is cool. And I have a rule that I will only buy a t-shirt, from a brewery that I've actually had a beer at.
Yeah.
So I have quite a few t-shirts, building up over the course of the years. All brewery t-shirts. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the same thing. And that for me, that's what, I know if I'm driving up to San Francisco, you know, it's a 6-7 hour drive, depending on which route I take. But if I take one picture on the way up, I'm excited for the next 2 or 3 hours just so I can download it and see how it turns out.
Yeah, you're incredibly talented that way, though. You know, I mean, I actually get excited to see your pictures. Honestly, I mean, you've got a great eye, you know. So
my photography only started about 7 or 8 years ago because I had a BlackBerry and the camera technology back then was crap.
Yeah.
And I would go places and I'd come home and I'd try and show pictures to my daughters about, hey, here's, you know, because at the time I was traveling, I was doing a lot of flying. I hit like 34 states in 2 years flying and opening up new stores. I would try and show the pictures of South Dakota or Oregon or, you know, Virginia to my daughters off the BlackBerry. So I went out and bought the combination of wanting to show them those pictures and my daughters playing lacrosse. I needed a better camera to take them. That's the whole reason I got started. It wasn't to become a photographer. It was just to take photos so I could show my kids. But now it's like I'm looking at things when I'm driving. I'm like, oh, hey, I wonder what that would look like at sunset or at sunrise, or, you know, I wonder what that would look like midday. I wish it was cloudy or, you know, whatever. But it fills up my time, my day, as I'm driving for hours and hours. I can't listen to too much political news. Or I
hear crazy. That, yeah. That just gets you angry, you know.
Yeah, either way. No matter what side you support.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, yeah. It's just frustration. So.
Yeah, so, I have the satellite radio, which is really nice. I don't have to keep finding radio stations from the area.
Yeah, well, that's always the roll of the dice with the rental car. You never know, you know.
And I rented a car. I was in Bismarck, North Dakota. I don't know if you've ever been to that beautiful spot.
I have not.
I get there. It's a small little airport. I mean, I think that probably has 6 to 8 gates total. I've been to smaller, but it was a small airport. I get there, I get to the rental car, and they're like, you ever been to North Dakota? I'm like, nope, I'm from California. And they're like, well, we're going to upgrade you. I'm like, really? Okay. Because it was raining. It was supposed to rain the whole trip. They put me in a brand new, and I mean like 300-mile odometer Chevy Tahoe. I'm like, this is nice.
Yeah.
Brand new black Chevy Tahoe. So from Bismarck, I had to drive 90 miles to Dickinson, North Dakota. And there's not a town, not a city, not a town in between those two places.
Right.
And I ended up driving down to Rapid City to check out some stores I had there. And then I went over to Mount Rushmore, which I always wanted to do. Kenny and I always wanted to go there. But it had been raining. And so I was bummed. I'm like, man, the one day I get a chance to take pictures of Mount Rushmore, and it's raining. And it ended up being ideal because I'll have to send you the picture, but when it rains at Mount Rushmore, if it's not pouring, it just drips down the face, so it looks like it leaves scars on the faces.
Yeah.
So it was kind of cool, and then drove up through Sturgis, where they do the bike rally, which is a really small town when there's no bike rally going on.
Right.
And then up to Dickinson. But what's a good airport you like flying into, and what's a bad airport you don't like flying into?
Okay, so I would say that one of my absolute worst airports to fly into or out of is LAX. I cannot stand LAX. Oh my gosh, it is.
I love LAX.
Do you really?
I do.
Oh man, I have no idea how you can stand it. I can't tolerate it. It's just so inefficient, so poorly laid out, so slow. So there's so many issues with it. You know, I mean, I actually, although, you know, I travel a lot, so I upgraded to Clear, you know, so now I have Clear, and I have Global Entry, I have PSA Pre, I have all that stuff. So it's not as bad, but LAX by far and away is like the worst airport. I put it right up there with like LaGuardia, you know, or Newark, you know. I mean, they're all.
I didn't like LaGuardia at all.
Yeah, no, they're all in the shit airports. I'm sorry, I don't know if I could use language, but anyway, they're crappy, right? Those airports are horrible. As far as like, you know, good airports to fly into or out of, I mean, I gotta say Orange County is pretty good.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it is. I mean, it's hard even being executive platinum out of Orange County because like everybody in Orange County is executive platinum.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Like the entire plane board's executive platinum out of Orange County. So there's that, you know, I don't get as much, I'll never get a 500-mile upgrade out of Orange County, you know, like never. I don't have that kind of juice, even with all the miles I travel. There are guys that go out of that airport that are way above me.
Yeah.
So there's that. But otherwise, as far as convenience goes, man, that's a great airport. Like across the nation, I would say Fort Lauderdale's nice. It's an easy in and out. I'd way rather do that and make the drive than go into Miami. Now that airport's pretty easy to get in and out of. Omaha, not that it's a huge airport, but it's super efficient, easy in and out. I got a kind of a theme when it comes to airports, and it's about getting in and out easy. As far as like airports that have like best airports to get stuck at, right? Like if you're stuck somewhere, Minneapolis, by far and away, that place rocks. I mean, it's a full-on mall, bars, the whole 9 yards. Great place to get stuck if you were to get stuck.
I had a layover. I had a layover at McCarran in Vegas and won some money while I was waiting. So
that can go either way on you. Very true. That can go either way on you, but yeah. So in and out.
What's
so
the
that's
smallest
kind of my
airport
thing.
you've flown into?
The smallest one? Well, actually, it was probably Lake Tahoe. Was probably the smallest one, and that wasn't for business. But man, I won't do that again. I'll tell you what, I nearly lost my lunch on the descent on that flight. So
I did that going into Kalispell, Montana. We came over. I had the big plane going into SeaTac in Seattle, and then we took a prop plane from Seattle over to Kalispell, which is the northern city of Montana.
Yeah,
coming over the Glacier Mountains. It was like, whoa! I didn't know a roller coaster ride was included.
Oh, yeah, exactly. There were people losing their lunch on that. Yeah. I was able to hold it together, but
the smallest airport I've been into, if you ever get the pleasure, Twin Falls, Idaho.
Twin Falls, Idaho. All right. I don't have any accounts up there, but maybe one day.
Just so you know.
Yeah.
One flight in the morning and one flight in the afternoon.
Okay.
And that's it.
Right.
I got done, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go hang out at the airport. I got a couple hours. I'll go get my laptop out and get working. Check in and just whatever. There's no one there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we'll be back at 3
I've had that
p.m.
before. Yeah.
And I'm like, what are you talking about back at 3? He's like, I'm here at 2:30. So I had to sit in the rental car till 2:30 until the people showed up to get my car and check me in. I was like, and I go, what's the deal? She goes, well, we get one plane in the morning, and then it goes out in the morning, and then we get one plane in the afternoon, and then it takes off in the afternoon.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay. Not quite used to that.
Have you ever landed somewhere where you have no service, like cell service?
Oh, let's see. Not
that ever happened to you?
No.
Yeah, it's the worst thing ever, especially when you become crippled. Like we are technologically so
dependent,
yeah. It was a very short period of time when I was on Sprint, because I was mad at Verizon because they were cutting everybody deals, and I had been on it forever, and they weren't cutting me a deal. So I left, I went to Sprint for all of about a year. I landed I landed in Billings, Montana, right, for an event, I had to be at. And, sometimes, you land at the airport, you turn it on to airplane mode, and you're like, okay, where are my emails? Where are my, texts and my messages and stuff? You're waiting for it, and no service. I got the X. I'm like, what the hell, And so I talked to some people on the plane. Well, we're kind of up on a bluff here. Maybe when you get down to town, you'll get some signal. I'm like, okay, but of course, this is like a couple years ago, and I haven't used the map, dude, and I don't know how long, right? I mean, I just do GPS on my phone, and I go to the hotel. So I have no GPS on my phone, and I'm going to rent my car, and I'm like, you know what? I haven't had to ask for this in forever, but I need a map because I have no service. I have no service. My phone's not going to take me there, and I actually need to go old school and get an actual map. So I finally, get to the hotel, no signal, nothing at all the entire time, just the big X. I finally get to the hotel, I check in, and, I'm in the phone case business. This is an event for that. So it's a Verizon event, right? And I check into the hotel, and I'm like, hey, I haven't been able to get any signal. I've got Sprint, is there an issue? He's like, oh, yeah, Sprint. Oh, there's no Sprint here. I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean there's no Sprint here? He's like, yeah, there's just no Sprint here. Like, there's no Sprint anywhere around here. Like, there's no Sprint. So I'm like, okay. So now I'm here at this 3-day event with, like, completely disconnected. And I am a work from phone guy. So it was incredibly anxious, right? But I was able to utilize the Wi-Fi. I figured out how to do the Skype and the WeChat and all the other ways to stay connected by way of Wi-Fi. But I never left the building until it was time to go to the airport. So lesson learned. I switched back to Verizon when I got back, by the way.
I'll tell you a good story. I had a 28-hour trip to Denver for a sales meeting. So I was leaving on a Wednesday, I think it was Wednesday, on Wednesday night, and I was going to be back Thursday night. No big deal, right? So I don't take too much. I'm just going to take my my laptop bag and put my extra clothes and shit in there. And my wife's going to drop me off at LAX. We've got to figure it out. I fly out of Southwest, so Terminal 1, boom, drops me off. She turns around and takes off and goes through a little shortcut and knows how to get back out of there. I go up to the desk, and I'm, like, checking in. I go to reach my phone, and I left my phone in the car because I was charging it up. And I'm like, fuck, that's got my boarding pass. That's got the hotel information.
I have a mantra, dude, that goes keys, wallet, phone. Keys, wallet, phone. I say it over and over and over again. Like when I go into a hotel, out of a hotel room, keys, wallet, phone. I touch them all before.
Me too. I do the same thing. But it was just I did that before I left, but I plugged it in just to get it up to 100. So when I'm on the plane, it'll be full loaded. So I'm just like, what do I do? So I go to a security person or airport information person. I said, can I use your phone to? So I call my wife. She doesn't pick up. So I wanted her to come back and give me my phone.
Sure.
And I'm like, so I borrow some, and she goes, and then I try again. I get to my boarding pass because I have my ID and all that. And so I called and left her a message saying, hey, I don't have a phone, so I can't text you when I land. I can't do anything. But thank God it was only a one-day trip, you know. Dude, I get to Denver International. It's a big airport. I had to use a payphone.
How did you even find one?
They have them there for free, just so you know. They're free payphones.
Really?
The baggage claim.
That's shocking.
Which I had never seen in my life.
Not that I've ever had cause or need to look for one, but now that's good to know.
So I go in. I'm like, oh, my God, I got to use a payphone because I have to call the hotel to get the shuttle to come pick me up. And I'm like, man, I got to dial 0. Ask the operator for the number for Country Suites Inn, you know.
Yeah, see, you had to recall all of those old skills. Like I had to actually learn how to read a map again. I was like, wait a minute, I used to know how to do this. You know, like I know how to do this.
Oh, so dude, you don't realize how often you check your phone until you don't have it.
It's true.
Because my boss was like, hey, so I just sent an email out to you guys. We're gonna have dinner here, here, and here. And I'm like, I didn't get that because I don't have my phone.
There's just no way to explain that, man. Like,
yeah, I just often wonder. It's like if my daughters, people my daughter's age, 23, 24, left without their phone and got to an airport, what would they do?
I don't know, meltdown.
Yeah,
full meltdown.
What's a payphone? Yeah,
right.
What's
true. We're lucky that we have all these archaic resources at our disposal.
What's dial 0?
And all this archaic knowledge that may somehow be useful at some point. Should the grid go down or something?
Yeah.
Hey, we can still read maps.
Only because we had to.
Right, exactly, yeah.
And now, I fought the iPhone for a while. My daughter's talking me into it, and I got it, and I'm like, oh, my God, I love this thing. It tells me different routes, how long it's actually going to take.
I got to say, man, I am, well, of course, being in the business, I'm very familiar with all the smartphone technology, and I've seen a lot of stuff. And I got to say that I am a huge fan of the Google product, Pixel, the Pixel 2. Like the first one was had some challenges, tech challenges. But the second one, man, it is amazing. I know that people are all down with the iPhone and the camera and all that, but I'll put the Pixel 2 up against any of the best the iPhone has to offer. And, I'm also an Android guy. I was like one of those guys that was the Windows guy, the IT guy. My wife was Apple. My daughter is Apple. They're all iPhone. But I'm kind of like anti just because. Really, I can't give you a really good solid reason other than just because.
Dude, I love my BlackBerry. I had my BlackBerry for.
That was great. Yeah, that thing was awesome.
The little roller ball and the actual.
It's been a long time. So yeah, it's been a long time.
So I got on the iPhone, and I'm like, so then, of course, I have to call my daughters and have them help set it up and show me how to do things and how to use the slide screen, the touch screen, because I was like, I'm used to a BlackBerry, pressing the buttons. So, but, now I'm an iPhone guy. It's like, it's so weird. So you use craft beers as your travel with?
That is kind of my well, normally I'm in a business of sales, so there's usually entertaining in most cases. So when I'm traveling, I'll in most cases be sucked into doing whatever the customer in that particular area wants to do socially, which is all good. But occasionally, I'll end up in scenarios where you're with certain large customers that have rules, about entertaining where you're there for meetings and then you're pretty much solo, that night, which is kind of, as a traveler, that's like my worst case scenario. Like, hey, at least when I'm entertaining, I'm entertaining. I'm having a good time. We're throwing back cocktails and enjoying a great meal or whatever. And then I go home and I go to bed, but in those times when you don't have those scenarios where you are forced to kind of entertain yourself and you're that guy that's solo at the bar or solo, wherever you decide to go, I have kind of two go-tos. One is the brewery, right? So I've got these apps I use like Tap Hunter and Untapped, and I'll look for certain types of beers and I'll find local breweries, and I'll go and visit those. And then the other thing I'll do is I'm a member of the Elks. I know. I'm only 51, but I joined a few years ago. But one of the things I've enjoyed doing too when I travel and I'm in that scenario where I'm on my own is seeing if there's a local lodge, because I roll in there and I'll show them my card, and it's kind of cool when you're from California because most of the places I go, I mean, no offense to other places, but they're not as cool, right? So when you go, when you're from, I mean, it's true, dude, right? You come to, somewhere else, and you're from California, like, oh, you're from California, it's neat though.
In my industry, that's huge. I work in the Western industry, so when people find out I'm from LA, they're like, what do you sell in Los Angeles? I go, well, we're not all surfers,
Exactly, yeah. Not all of us. I'm not one. So
I'm not either anymore.
Yeah, I know you tried to teach me one time. Yeah, that was a long time ago.
I don't know if it was the student or the instructor, but yeah.
I don't know. I think maybe we both were.
Yeah, exactly.
I did dig that convertible you had, though.
The 62 Ford Galaxy.
Dude, that thing was sweet.
I ended up selling that to my brother-in-law. He drove it around for a little bit, and then he sold it. And now I see what they're worth now.
You should have hung on to it, huh?
I want to punch myself in the head.
I know, huh?
My daughter's like, that was such a cool car. Like, in high school, it wasn't that cool. I don't remember it being that cool. Like, it broke down a lot. I had to push it to the gas station. I had to fix it myself a lot. And at the time it was a 20-foot long steel boat, and everyone back then had the little cars and this and that. Because it was 62 in 83. So it was only 20 years old. It was just an old piece of crap back then. And a lot of people were like, wow, you got a clunker, rah, rah, rah,
Who would have thought?
Yeah. And now it's worth, a mint condition one's worth 30 to 40 grand.
Yeah. Crazy.
I'm like, excuse me? We bought that car for under $1,000.
Yeah, that's funny.
My dad, I don't know if you ever know the story. My dad bought that car when I was probably 13 or 14, and his plan was to fix it up and restore it a little bit. And it sat in our garage for a couple of years, and it didn't run. And I was 15. I had just turned 15. My dad goes, "Hey, when you turn 16, do you want to drive a car?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "You want the Ford?" I go, "It doesn't run." He goes, "Well, if you can get it to run, you can use it." So he went out and bought me a Chilton Blue Book manual. So I would come home after school, read the book, and he would, give me, replace the water pump, replace the belt, replace the fuel pump, fuel filter, whatever. And I'd do it, and he'd come home and check and see what I screwed up and tell me how to fix it. The next day I'd come back and fix it. And then when I turned 16, it was running, so I got to drive it.
Wow, great story. I never knew that's how you got to drive it.
Yeah.
I do remember you having to work on it a lot, though.
Yeah. Well,
I remember.
The gas gauge didn't work.
I do remember that as well.
And that's why I kept running out of gas at 7 miles to the gallon. But that son of a bitch was heavy. That was a push.
Well, and all it played was 50s music.
Yeah. Well, the AM radio still worked. I was just listening. And then eventually I put in the glove box, I put a cassette player in there. But I didn't want to, I kept the tube radio still working.
Yeah.
We couldn't find a gas gauge for it, so we couldn't change that out. So that sucked. I probably ran out of gas about 7 or 8 times in that thing. Yeah. But
I don't know. You look cool in it, man. You look cool.
Yeah, I would look cooler in it now. I can't afford a $40,000.
I don't know. I think you were better looking back then, Pete. I'm pretty sure you'd look cooler in it then.
I didn't. No. I would just look cool. Now I'm just an old guy driving an old car. That would be cool. Back then, I was a young kid driving an old car.
Exactly. That made it cool.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, exactly. That's what made it cool. Yeah.
I remember going to car shows, like at the Orange County Fairgrounds, the Labor Day Cruise. And I was like the youngest by 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
And, here's a tidbit of advice I got from the car show. So I go to the car show, and I was part of the fabulous 50s Fords. Even though my car was a 62, they kind of let me slide in because I was so young. And because they wanted 50 through 59. So it was a lot of Sunliners and the hardtop retractables. But so I go to the Labor Day Cruise, and I go with this couple, and they were probably in their early 30s, mid-30s. So they were like the youngest in that crowd. A lot of them were in their 40s, 50s, 60s back then even. And so we go to the Labor Day Cruise. It's Orange County Fairgrounds. It's, summer's still out. And there's a lot of pretty women walking around. And I'm 18, so I'm looking, 18, 19. And I go up to the wife, and I go, hey, how do you feel about John looking at all these pretty girls in the in bathing suits and this and that? And she goes, I'm pretty practical about it. She goes, I figure the day he stops looking at other women is the day he's probably close to dying. And I go, okay.
Great,
goes,
that's perfect. Yeah.
She goes, the day he touches something, he'll be even closer.
Right, he'll be even closer. That's funny.
I was 18, I never forgot that. I'm like, all right. So you can look, but don't touch. I gotcha.
Exactly. Well, that is the rule, right? When you travel, right? And it doesn't matter where you get your appetite so long as you eat at home.
Yeah,
so sometimes you come home hungry.
As we get into our 50s,
Well, you all know the 3 rules after 50, right?
Hit me.
Okay, so there's 3 rules after 50. The first rule after 50 is never pass a bathroom without taking a piss, even if you don't have to go, right?
Okay.
And believe me, as a traveler, man, in the airports, you're like, oh, that's only like 8 gates, and there's a bathroom there. Go into the bathroom. Don't try to push it, the 8 gates. They're just not, we don't have the tolerance anymore. So never pass the bathroom without taking a piss. The second rule after 50 is never trust a fart. Right? So that's a big one, dude. Especially when if you're somewhere where you can roll the dice and trust the fart, go for it. You know what I mean? But if you're sitting on a plane, or somewhere where you can't trust, you don't have a backup, should it be a little more than what you anticipate? Yeah. Yeah. Never trust a fart. And then the third one was never pass up an erection. So if you get one, you got to do something
run with it.
Do something with it. You know what I mean? Go home to the wife, whatever. But just you can't let them go after 50 because they come few and far between now. So those are the 3 rules after 50.
Oh, my birthday's on Friday, so I'll have to keep those in mind. Although it's 51,
number one and number 2. Well, number 1 is the most important. Number 2 hasn't really set in on me unless I had a really rough night the night before. But you know what I mean. But otherwise, but number 1 is definitely for sure that I abide by that one.
It's obviously funny, but kind of true. That's why it's funny. Because
exactly.
I'm more careful now what I drink before I get on the plane.
Oh yeah.
For me, I like window seats. And
me too. Totally.
And depending on who's in between you,
right.
and how far if you want to, because if you take a late night flight, a lot of people just want to sleep. So let me hit you up there. I just came up with a good question for you. You travel a lot. Who's the most interesting person you've met on a plane?
The most interesting person I've ever met on a plane.
You talk to the people you sit next to?
It depends. I mean, if I'll be, okay, look, I'm going to disclose my snobbery right now. So if I'm in first class, then I'll keep the headphones off and I'll be open to, a discussion or whatever. But if I'm in coach or whatever, I'm the guy who puts the earphones on and has a window seat and puts his elbow on the inside of the armrest, right?
Yeah.
On my side, right? Which means there's no reason you should be touching me, right? I'm in the inside of my armrest, okay? Right? So I'm well beyond your space, so if you encroach, then I'm that guy. Sorry.
No, that's all good.
So in most cases, I don't really have that many interesting people. I'm trying to think, if I've met anybody on the plane that's really interesting.
I would say about half the time I'm watching a movie, working on photography, working on my photos or whatever, and I've got my headset in, listening to music. Sometimes, depending on who sits next to me, I'll end up talking to them. I've met 3 kind of cool people coming back from Chattanooga, Tennessee. I was with a guy, and so we just started talking, this and that. And I go, so what you do? What do you do? And he's a professional gambler. And I go, how do you get that gig? He goes, but to be honest with you, he goes, I'm one of those guys. I go, what do you mean? He goes, I got a trust fund from my parents. They passed away, and I haven't had to work since I've been 20. So
wow, sweet life.
I'm a professional gambler. And I go, well, do you take it seriously? He goes, yeah. He goes, we got a website, and we had one of those pokeronline.com deals back, this is a couple of years ago. But, and I'm just like, I've never met anybody that would just come out and say, I've never had a job, and I don't need money, and I just do what I want to do. I'm still Facebook friends with them. Wow. Another guy I met going into Bozeman, Montana with his family. They were from South Africa. And I said, what do you do? He goes, he sets up photography safaris. So instead of hunting, he takes people out that want to take photos.
Yeah, the fraternity brother just did one of those.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And so he was flying to Montana because he has to travel around the U.S. to get people interested in signing up on. It's a tour and all that. But he takes them out, instead of killing the animals, he takes them out to take photos of them. Obviously, I enjoyed that because I take a lot of photos. And I was flying into LAX. This was probably a year and a half ago. Have you ever heard of an organization called Sea Shepherd?
No. There
was a show on Discovery called Whale Wars.
I am familiar with the show, although I never did watch it, but I'm familiar with the
show. They go out, and they're like Greenpeace on steroids.
Right, yeah. They're trying to stop the whalers.
The Japanese whale ships and all that. And so I was sitting next to the CEO of Sea Shepherd. And so I ended up talking to him about how he got the job and, how to become an activist. And it was kind of cool. It was like, huh. Because I actually watched the show a few times. So I was asking about different things and this and that and the different regulations that they run into and the different navies they have to deal with, whether it's the Australian Navy or, U.S. Navy or whatever. Because the Japanese Navy and all the politics that they have to play on a global scale to try and get people self-efficient. So those are just the three people I've met. It was just interesting.
Wow. Yeah, no, dude, you win. I got nobody that's that interesting on a plane. I met people elsewhere, but not on a plane.
Have you ever?
Like I said, I'm pretty.
You're shut
quiet.
down. Yeah, you're doing your job.
Have
you ever seen any celebrities on your plane?
On flights, no. No, never any celebrities. I ran into Damon Wayans, but that was not on a flight. But
you'll appreciate this story. In between flights, I just came back from, I don't even remember. I know I was going to Houston, and then from Houston, I was going up to Columbus, Ohio. Well, I'm like, man, I'm only home for a day. I came home on a Monday, and I was flying back out on Wednesday. So I'm trying to
done that.
So you try and get shit done on the day you're home.
Mm-hmm.
I had an afternoon flight on Wednesday, and I couldn't see my dentist on Tuesday, so I had to see my dentist on the Wednesday morning. And it was for a cavity, so they're going to numb me up. And I'm like, cool, man, I'm going to be on a plane anyways. I don't care. So they numb up my mouth, get my cavity filled up or, cleaned up and all that. And so I go to the LAX, and I'm standing, and I think it was United. So I'm standing there, and my mouth is numb, where you can't bite, you can bite your own tongue and that kind of numb. Like
yeah.
So I see two guys standing there waiting to go on my flight, and I'm like, holy shit, it's Nikki Sixx and Mick Mars from Motley Crue.
Right.
I'm like, fuck, what are the chances? I got to say hi. Not remembering completely how fucked up my mouth was. And so I walk up to them. The bodyguards are, I'm walking up politely, not fan rushing them or anything. And the guy Nicky holds up his hands because Mick was talking to him, and Mick's back was to me. So Nicky holds up his hand like, hey, just give me a sec. And so I just stand there, I wait, polite, and so Mick gets done, and he turns around, and I say, hey, I just want to say thanks for making the music. I've been listening to you guys shit forever, and hey, we really appreciate it. But at the time, I could feel like slobber coming out of my mouth. So I've always wondered, like, what did they think? Like, does this guy need like a mental patient trying to, say hi to us? Because I was just like a mess. But I'm like, shit, I got to say hi.
That's funny.
And then they went into first class, and I went into the back. I'm like,
no good stories like that, man. I wish. I mean, I fly a lot every year, but I still haven't had any of those like cool experiences. They've all been pretty like, pedestrian and generic. I just try to get in and out and hope for an upgrade and Yeah. That's,
when I used to, it may or may
one of
not.
the cool little things I do though when I travel is I'm a huge Hotwire guy. I don't know if you've ever used it before, but when you're it's the best play when you can be a little bit flexible, like where you stay. So I'll usually wait till like the last minute. I only stay 4-star, or above, right. But I never pay more than maybe $106 a night, maybe $119 a night. Oh, yeah, you just go on Hotwire, and you don't get to pick which hotel you get. You can tell that it's going to be in a certain area, on the map, so you know where you need to be, and you know that your hotel will be in that area, and that it'll be 4 stars or more, and then you pay for it, and then it tells you, which hotel you get.
That's kind of cool, though.
It's super cool. And then, obviously I'm members of all the hotel, clubs, so you got to make sure it doesn't happen automatically when you do it that way. You got to go to the counter and technically they don't give you the points, but if you're like nice and you're, I've never been turned down. I'm like, oh really? He goes, well, we're not supposed to. I'm like, oh, come on, So then you get the points, and the cool thing is a lot of times you get these cool little boutique hotels, that are not like, Hilton or Marriott, they're like, and they got their own like eclectic, Ian Traeger designs, and it's cool. Like I dig it when that happens,
That's right. For me, like I tend to go to the same areas 4 times a year, and every once in a while I'll try something different. Especially when I first started, I was trying different hotels, and I'm an independent contractor, so it's my own money, and so
it's mine too, but I get to bill my clients for that.
I found a threshold of, okay, I'm not staying there ever again, But I've tried some boutique hotels. I stayed at a really cool one in San Luis Obispo. Little brick. It was like an old brick. It was right downtown. And then I did a nice boutique one in Santa Barbara. But for me, when I traveled to a lot of rural areas, and Bakersfield, Visalia.
Yeah.
The one thing I
go to a lot of bigger cities, like I'm Chicago, Minneapolis, Miami, Dallas, Detroit.
Here's a travel tip if you ever go to a rural area, Kevin. When you look up the map.
Well, I go to Omaha. That's pretty rural.
When you look at the map.
Oh, wait, Bentonville. I go there. That's pretty rural. Oh yeah. I go there a lot. I do a lot of business in Bentonville.
So here's your training tip for when you travel to rural towns. You look at the hotel, but you got to go to Google Maps.
Okay.
Because when you go to Google Maps, it'll show you where the rail tracks are, the train tracks.
Gotcha.
Because I stayed at too many in the Bakersfield, Visalia, Salinas, and you go, oh my God, there's a train track right behind it. That's why it was $40 a night cheaper than all the other ones in the area.
Gotcha.
I'm like, oh my God, I don't know if you've ever stayed in a place that's close to a train track, but at 2 a.m, going, woo, woo.
Yeah, I can't imagine that. That's pleasant.
It's a wake-up call.
Although, depending on what happened at 2 a.m, that might not wake me up. So.
Well, that's because you went to the craft beer pub.
Exactly. Or I went out with clients. Either way, I'm usually a pretty sound sleeper on the road.
I am too, man. I don't bring sleeping aids or anything like that. But no way, that train track. Oh my God, it was in Visalia. I was like, I will be looking up for train tracks by hotels from now, because that was just ridiculous. We stayed at one in Denver. It was like that. It was a Red Lion, but it was the same way. It was right next to a train track that was active. Within the rural areas, that they actually still use the rail.
Yeah, no, haven't done that.
You need to do some slumming.
Yeah, I don't have to do that anymore, man. I used to. So that was a long time ago, and I'm too old to remember all that stuff.
You're a big wig.
I'm sure I got some stories though, from back then.
You'll have to write them down now.
Yeah. There were a few Super 8s in my past,
Oh man,
that's for sure.
Wow,
that's okay.
I think Super 8 like the
no, it's just a shade above the Motel 6. But
no,
anyway.
I know Super 8. I did the Super 8 in El Cajon, and it was like,
it's literally just two points above Motel 6.
I literally don't need to hear my next door neighbor having sex all night long, and then seeing them in the morning.
Right.
It wasn't that funny at night, and especially when you see the kids in the room the next morning.
Oh yeah, that would be awkward. I would explain that. Yeah.
It's like, really? You were that loud doing that much with 2 small kids in the room. Huh. Okay.
Crazy place now, Pete.
I guess I'm too old.
Yeah,
for that.
you know, boys used to be boys, girls were girls. Man, now there's all this. You don't know who's who or what's what. Yeah, I saw the best gender like neutral bathroom though in Austin, Texas when I was there a couple weeks ago. And I thought this was the way to solve the problem as it relates to bathrooms altogether, because it's really all about process, method, you know, efficiency, right? So the way they labeled them in Austin at this one bar, it was sit to pee or stand to pee. So this bathroom is optimized for those who sit to pee, and this bathroom is optimized for those who stand to pee, right? So the equipment you can expect to find in the bathroom would be commensurate with the method in which you pee, right? I thought that was genius, right?
I gotcha.
And that's perfect, right? Like, who could object to that? Like, we should just go to that, right? This bathroom set up, if you stand up to pee, there's like urinals and stuff, so it's real efficient. This bathroom's got like extra sit-down places if you sit to pee. And we don't have to say it's men or women or anything, right?
I'll tell you, I went to a dinner place in Venice Beach. The changes actually helped me because the place used to only have 1 man and 1 woman restroom, one at a time, you know. And now I go up there to use the restroom, and they're both gender neutral, whatever they call them. You know, anybody can use it if it's empty. And because the one that was in the men's was full, I went over to the other one. And I'm like, oh, I can't go. I remembered it being the women's restroom. And the guy walks by that works here. He goes, if it's empty, you can use it. Oh, okay. When door was locked.
It's still just one at a time, though, right?
Yeah, that was one. Yeah.
You know, I thought these guys in Austin had it down. So I'm just throwing that out there. Sit to pee, stand to pee. Like, let's just change them all to that.
I was in a little taco shop in Tustin, over by right where I used to work at the gas station. Irvine Boulevard.
Oh, yeah.
I was right over there. And so I'm eating at the taco shop, and they had 2 bathrooms. One was all genders, and the other one was women only.
Yeah, what's up with that?
I'm like,
they're all like that when they do that.
I'm like,
women get theirs, but the men like have to share theirs.
I'm like, either all gets all or none gets, you know what I mean? I'm all for the all gets all. I'm cool with that. I don't care. You know? I was like, how can you have a women's only and then one that's...
I mean, you know, there were some advantages that we never had to wait in line. Like, guys didn't have to wait in line.
Yeah.
Like, there was always a line in the women's bathroom, never a line at the guys' bathroom. Now it's topsy-turvy. Like, what's going on? Like, we're going to have to wait in line too now. But bathrooms were relevant to the travel because you do run into that depending on where you go. Like, Minneapolis is down with it, you know, different places.
Are they really?
Go to. Oh, my gosh, totally, man. Yeah. There are certain places you go that are all about that, you know, where they're, you know, the bathrooms are, in most cases, they're like you just described, where they have, the women have theirs, but the men is now a woman or men. Bathroom.
Gender neutral.
Gender neutral, whatever. Yeah. So I don't even know what to say anymore. It's so weird.
I haven't flown into a place like that. I mean, like Denver, it's men's and women's and all that.
Yeah. Denver's not as, Minneapolis is big time that way, though.
Yeah.
Even Salt Lake, when you get into downtown, they've got some places that are all into that as well. So it depends on where you go. Some
better, some worse. How do you like the drinking rules in Utah?
They're really goofy, man. You know, they well, there's one rule that I adhere to in Utah, which is never ever drink beer out of the tap. That's the one rule, because no matter what it is that you get out of the tap, even if you go to the brewery in Utah, it will be 4%.
Right.
Even if it's a double IPA. So if you want the real beer, you have to order that same beer from the brewery in a bottle, and then it will be the full ABV that you expect and have the right taste and everything. So yeah, I mean, it's goofy. And then the one thing is, I'll say this: shots are easy in Salt Lake, you know, because they're only 1 ounce. So you know, so there's that. Like, I could take a shot, no problem, in Salt Lake. I feel like a stud there, you know.
We went to a restaurant. We opened up a store just north of Salt Lake City, and I'm not a big drinker, so we go in, but we go out to this bar. I was going to buy the rounds, you know, for my customer, and we had about 8 guys, and I said, hey, what do you want? And I go up to it, and I said, hey, I said, I need this, I need that, and he goes, you can only get 2 drinks. I'm like, well, no, I'm not drinking them all. I mean, they're all for my buddies, but it's, you know, well, they have to come up and order it.
And you can't, you have to finish your drink before they'll put another one down in front of you. Yeah. Even if you have like a swallow left, they can't come over with another cocktail. So.
And then I was in Dallas, north of Dallas, by Denton. I opened up a store in Denton, and my friend lived in a city of paradise. Call her up, and her and her husband and her 2 kids are there, so we're going to hang out, and I was going to take some pictures of them doing their team roping stuff. And they go, hey, can you pick up some beers? I'm like, yeah, all right. I'll figure I get close. And they didn't tell me where they live. It's a dry county. And so I get close. I didn't want the beer to get warm in my car. So I wait to get close around Paradise. Paradise it's not a real city. It's a town with one main street, and then they live on the outskirts. But I get in there, and I go to a market, and I'm looking around like, there's no beer here. And they're like, oh, we're a dry county. I go, what's that? And they're like, we don't serve alcohol. I'm like, seriously? I thought that was like 40 years ago. I never heard of a dry county. The whole county, no alcohol served. Like,
yeah, it was. I don't have a story, like that where it's dry, but similar. On a Sunday in Salt Lake.
Yeah.
And my daughter went to school out there, and I had business out there, so we spent the weekend, and then I was staying over Sunday, and the wife flew back, and my daughter was going to school on Monday, and I had meetings on Monday and Tuesday, so I decided, she had something to do with dive or whatever that night. So I decided I'm going to go downtown and try and find a place to eat, maybe have a beer or something. You would have thought they were shooting a movie down there, man.
Yeah.
I mean, and then nothing was roped off, but there was nobody in the streets. I mean, like, you never saw anything so desolate, like a major downtown area where there aren't any cars on the road, there's no people on the streets, all the stores are closed. So, yeah, that was an experience, so I won't do that anymore. But
I did that in southern Indiana, man. I flew into Louisville, had about an hour and a half drive to get up into Indiana. And I'm like, well, I'll just get some food when I'm there. Because I want to get to the hotel, check in, and I'll get some food. Literally, no restaurants open Sunday night. And I'm like, I go, what do you mean? She goes, well, I think the Taco Bell or Del Taco, it was a Taco Bell. Del Taco's Western. She goes, I think the Taco Bell still might be open, but I think they're closing pretty soon. I'm like, hold on. It's like 9:30 on a Sunday night. You got people around here eat at home, especially on Sundays. I just need some food. I'm starving. That's when I learned to get, if I have to, get a little snack. If I'm flying into a city I don't know, I'm getting some snack at the airport.
Yeah. I've got lots of stories like that.
Yeah.
Where you can't eat. One, but flew into going to Bentonville to drive across. Figure, I'll find some place to eat.
Oh, man.
Nothing.
Yeah. Well, North Dakota was like that, too.
Yeah.
I mean, I drove through a town, and it was I was heading to the Rapid City to go see Mount Rushmore, and it was like, holy Christ, I need to find a place to eat. I'd driven like 2.5 hours and nothing.
Right.
And I'm like, well, I stopped at a place. I bought a T-shirt. I was kind of like you. I bought a T-shirt. I went there. Buttes Creek, Buttes Flat, population 0.
Really?
So I go,
population 0.
I go, how do you have a town that's population 0? He goes, because it was literally just a gas station and another building, and that was it, like a little building. And I needed some snack foods and all that. And it was, it was a good size. It had a little market and all that. And I go, how do you have a population 0? He goes, well, because technically we have a post office. We're technically a town, but we don't live here anymore, and we moved, to the next town up. So no one lives technically in our town. Crow's Butte, I think, something like that. And I'm like, they had retired up there, but they were looking to sell it. And I'm like, so you're selling the whole town? And he goes, yep. I'm like, all right. Population 0. I bought a shirt that says population 0. I got my snacks and got back on the road.
That's funny.
That was a good story. Well, hey, bud, I've taken up enough of your time, I think.
All right, Pete. Well, thanks, man.
Hey, appreciate it, and we'll have to stay in touch and talk soon.
Yeah,
Thanks again,
definitely.
Man. Appreciate it, Kevin.
Thank you.
All right, buddy.
Bye-bye.